regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. There are agendas on the city website, online if you'd like them. All items appearing on the consent agenda are voted on in one motion and one vote generally. These are all routine in nature and do not require any discussion. All items listed under unfinished business or new business are voted on separately. First, councilors will be given an opportunity for questions or comments. Once councilors have had the opportunity to speak, citizens will be given an opportunity for comments or questions. Citizens must speak and identify themselves. Each citizen will be allowed one opportunity to speak and will be limited to 3 minutes. Finally, the councilors will be given another opportunity to comment. Citizens who would like to speak on a topic that does not appear on tonight's agenda will have an opportunity to do so at the end of the meeting under the public comment section of the agenda. I will ask that if you are going to speak that you use the raise hand function so that we can keep it orderly. And right now we'll all look at Rick Foss and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. With that said, Patty, I'm going to start with the proclamation here. As many of you know, Mike is stepping down as city manager. We have Steve now, who's been doing a great job. Let's see where this went. I have it here, I promise. Here we go. Proclamation. Whereas Michael J. Roy was hired by the city of Waterville in September of 2004 as the city administrator and then became the first city manager of the city of Waterville in 2006. With extensive experience after serving in the towns of Fairfield, Vassalboro, and Oakland. And whereas Mike has served Greater Waterville community in various other capacities as a member of the Waterville Rotary, the Board of Directors of Kennebec Federal Savings Bank, the Delta Ambulance Board, and the Development Foundation Board, the Kennebec Regional Development Authority, the High Hopes Clubhouse, and the Central Maine Youth Hockey Board. And whereas Mike has been instrumental in securing funds to maintain and improve the city's infrastructure, to include the construction and renovation of the Central Fire Station building, a new office building for Public Works / Parks and Recreation Administration, renovating City Hall and the Waterville Opera House, renovating Waterville Public Library, renovating the municipal pool, developing the Quarry Road Recreational Center, building a new police station, and renovating the 2-cent bridge and developing the Riverwalk. And whereas in his years of service, there has been significant growth and change in the city of Waterville, where Mike has been at the helm for the renovation of the Hathaway building, the addition of the interchange off of I-95 at the Trafton Road, construction of the Bill and Joan Alphon Main Street Commons building, construction of the Lockwood Hotel, and significant investments and renovations of several buildings throughout the downtown, along with the ongoing work from the Build Grant to change traffic patterns in the downtown. And whereas Mike has led the city with passion and a sense of loyalty, having solid roots in the city of Waterville, his hometown, where he was educated in Waterville Public Schools from kindergarten through 12th grade, and subsequently attended and graduated from Colby College, then established his home in Waterville with his wife, where they raised their 2 daughters, and whereas Mike has faithfully served the city of Waterville and its citizens by leading with wisdom, foresight, and humility. And now, therefore, I, Jay Coelho, Mayor of City of Waterville, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, February 2nd, 2022 as Michael J. Roy Day. In the City of Waterville, and urge all citizens and employees to join me in the City Council in congratulating Mike for his meritorious service, loyalty, and dedication to the citizens of Waterville. Thank you, Mike. You can't hear us all clapping, but we are.
Thank you very much, and especially, well, to you and to the mayors and councilors that came before you, the chance to work in my hometown. Not many town and city managers have a chance to do that. So I've been extremely grateful for that opportunity. I started in town of Fairfield in January 1978, probably before some of you were born. And it's been a great ride, and to finish here in my hometown has really been an honor for me. So I thank you all, and I'm here to help in any way I can, to help Steve in any way I can, to keep the momentum going and to make sure that he gets what he needs from me through the transition period. So again, thank you so much.
You're muted if you're talking, Jag.
There I go. So we're presenting the auditor's report.
All right. I'm going to share my screen here in a minute, but I'll just take a second to introduce myself. A lot of you I recognize from the last few years, but my name is Eric Netto. I'm a partner with Nicholson, Michaud, and Netto here in Waterville, and I'm the partner in charge of the audit for the city of Waterville. And we have been, this is the 6th year actually that we've been auditing the city. And, you know, I've known Mike for a long time, and I would just like to extend, you know, congratulations to Mike on his retirement. And I know I'll be seeing him a lot. We're involved in some projects outside of the city, but, you know, it's been a pleasure working with him over the last, you know, 6 years, and even before that in my prior firm. So I've always been appreciative of Mike's leadership and you know, assistance as we've been, you know, auditing the city and looking at a lot of different things. So congratulations, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen in a second, and we're going to go through a presentation. We are presenting the fiscal year 20 financial statements for the city. They are in draft form. However, they're final drafts at this point. We don't anticipate any major changes. We are still wrapping up the engagement, going through our quality control process, and we should be ready to issue within the next couple of weeks. You know, this year's been challenging just from an auditing perspective, you know, with the pandemic and you know, functioning in a remote structure. It's been a little bit of a challenge doing everything, sharing everything electronically. So, you know, I do want to mention Aaron Burles and Linda Cody and Linda Taylor and their staff, really working with us and doing a great job, you know, working in what's a difficult, you know, audit environment. They were really helpful with us this year and patient as well. So I just wanted to extend my thank you to them. All right. I'm going to share my screen here and just let me know if everybody can see this okay. That look all right?
Looks good, Eric.
All right. All right, so the responsibility for the financial statements rests with management, and our responsibility as the city auditor is to express an opinion on those financial statements based on our audit. And we conduct the audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States, and those standards provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatement. And we will be issuing an unmodified opinion on the fiscal year 20 financials. That's a clean opinion for the city. Okay. So the way that this presentation is going to be looking at some key areas. So we're not going to be doing a detailed walkthrough of your financial statements, but I did want to highlight for the council members just the overall presentation of the city financial statements. So we report on the government-wide financial statements, which is really what you'd be familiar with as it's a full accrual type of financial statement where we recognize capital assets and long-term debt, various other liabilities and accruals. We also report on the fund financial statements, okay? And those would be your general fund, your special revenue funds, your capital projects fund. Those are more, those report more on a current financial resources or modified accrual basis. So there's no capital assets or long-term debt. In the fund financial statements, for example, your debt service is an expenditure. So principal and interest would be an expense within the fund statements, but on your government-wide statements where you're recording long-term debt, your principal would reduce that balance and so on and so forth. So we report on the government-wide, we report on the fund financial statements, and then we provide a reconciliation within the financial statements to kind of bridge the gap between those two financials. Okay. So now we're going to start getting into a few of the key areas for the city. So this slide here shows your last 6 years of taxes receivable and liens in your general fund. That balance at your taxes receivable and liens at the end of fiscal year 20 was about $960,000. That was a fairly significant decrease over the prior year. Your receivables are going to fluctuate based on payment, right? These are uncollected receivables at the end of the year. So there could be fluctuations. When we look at the next slide, you'll see that your property tax collection rate in fiscal year 20 was up significantly. It went up from about 95% in fiscal year 19 to about 96% in fiscal year 20. Okay. This slide shows the last 6 or 7 years of your property tax rates. The rate that we were auditing in fiscal year 20 was about 25.76. And what I like to note here is that in fiscal year 21, your property tax rate was unchanged. And within your management discussion and analysis, which is a part of your financial statements, we do expand a little bit on your property tax rate and also on some of the valuation information for the city as well. Okay, this slide here, this unavailable revenue. So we were just talking about property taxes receivable. So within your financial statements, we basically record a deferral for the portion of your property taxes that are unpaid after 60 days after your year end, right? So we evaluate, we obtain information from the city and we look at cash receipts in July and August. And based on those cash receipts, that is revenue for the city, okay? So this year, this slide you really want to evaluate along with your property taxes receivable. So we already looked at your property tax receivable balance. That was down significantly. So that would indicate that you're going to have a lower deferred revenue amount, and that's what this slide represents. All right, this next slide shows your long-term debt levels. Obviously, in fiscal year 20, we were expecting to see a fairly significant increase here. The city added about $5.6 million of new debt, new bond financing. Majority of it was used for, capital projects and improvements. So we added about 5.6, and we retired through principal payments about 2.2 million. So overall, there was a fairly significant increase. Next year, you'll have another increase because you have another bond financing package that occurred after year end. That bond is not within your fiscal year 20 financials. These next few slides are going to get into your general fund and your fund balance. So in fiscal year 20, your combined general fund balance for the city and school was approximately $7.96 million. That was an increase from the prior year of about $894,000. This slide here shows your unassigned fund balance within the general fund for your city. As you know, there's within your financial statements, the city always designates a portion of its fund balance to the next budget period. And then that unassigned fund balance is an important metric for the city. So in fiscal year 20, that balance was a little over $6 million. And a portion of the general fund balance that was assigned to the fiscal year 21 budget period was about $534,000. This slide here shows your general fund for the school, your general fund balance for the school. At the end of fiscal year 20, that balance was about $1.26 million. That was an increase of about $203,000 over the prior year. One thing that I want to mention here as well, when we're looking at the fund balance, within the audited statements, when you look at the general fund, we do break out the city portion and the school portion as separate categories within the audited financial statements. This next slide shows your fund balance policy calculation for the past several years. And you can see at the end of fiscal year 20, the city has a fund balance policy of 12%. And that percentage that policy amount is calculated by taking your unassigned fund balance at the end of the fiscal year and dividing it by the general fund expenditures for the year. And you can see at the end of fiscal year 20, and this isn't entirely surprising when we saw earlier that the general fund balance increased by $894,000, that the city has exceeded its fund balance policy requirement of 12%. It's a little over 16% at the end of fiscal year 20. This next slide shows your fund balance utilization. So what the blue tab represents in this slide is the budgeted fund balance usage for the fiscal year. Okay, and then the red bar shows how much of that fund balance was actually utilized within the budget period. So you can see in fiscal year 18, 19, and 20 that the city budgeted to use a portion of its general fund balance for budgeting purposes. But the actual results, they didn't use any of their budgeted fund balance within that budget period. They actually added to their fund balance. And that was, again, the case in fiscal year 20. And I think this is an important slide to kind of look at, right? So every year when you're going through your budget process, you're determining how much of that fund balance to use within that budget period. And then when we get to the end of the year and you look at your actual results, you know, I think this is this shows just kind of the overall, you know, actual results for the city. The fact that the city did a good job, obviously budgeting, but also tracking expenses, monitoring expenses, and budgeting on the revenue side. Okay. All right. This slide here just shows a quick breakdown of your general fund revenues for fiscal year 20. You can see that, you know, there's a large portion of your revenue obviously is generated through taxes, and also a significant amount as well through intergovernmental and tuition charges. What you don't see here because I don't want to provide too busy of a slide here, is that if you were to take these percentages and spread it out over a 5, 6, 7-year period, you see that these percentages are fairly consistent year over year for the city. Similar on your expenditures. Obviously, almost 62% of the general fund expenditures are within education. Then your next largest category would be protection, public works. Again, if we were to spread these percentages out over a period of time and look at trends, you'd see that these percentages as well are very consistent and comparable. And as I mentioned earlier, Mike and Aaron, Linda Taylor, all the staff with the city, Paula Pooler at the school, Eric Haley, the superintendent, anybody that's involved with us during the audit, really does a really good job of providing us with information when we ask for it, when we need it. They're able to answer questions and really assist us throughout the process. We had no difficulties in dealing with management in performing and completing the audit. We generally discuss a lot of information. I mean, the city audit is complicated. The financial statements are 60 pages. There's a lot that goes into it. So, we're doing a quick presentation here. There's a lot of information that goes into this work. And we discuss a lot of different things. And there were no disagreements really between the auditors and management about financial accounting, reporting, or auditing matters. A lot of the conversations I would consider to be just general, normal type conversations that we have throughout an audit engagement. And we have not identified, part of any audit engagement is to really review and evaluate internal controls. We have not identified any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control in the current year for the city or the school. All right. That concludes my presentation. I know we went through that fairly quickly. Does anybody have any questions regarding the presentation or any questions on the financial statements?
I don't know, Mike. There you go.
Thank you. Since this happened on my watch, I just wanted to point out page 14, if those of you have the audit available, this is always the one page that we look at first here on the administration side, because it shows you what we budgeted, what you budgeted, and how we did on the spending side. And so when you look at page 14, you'll see that when you look at the revenues collected more than budgeted and the expenses less than budgeted, it came up with a surplus of almost $900,000. At the bottom of the third column, $893,000. This is the third year in a row this has happened. And I'm not saying it necessarily so because we take credit for it. Obviously, one of the big changes in that time period was also the reinstitution of state revenue sharing, which was huge for us. And so, but our fund balance, when you look at the bottom and you see that 7,961,000, when you look at that number from the year 2017, I believe it was 5.5 million. So our fund balance, including all the funds, schools, city, all of those fund balances totaled together, almost $8 million. We've made a remarkable increase in that bottom line number in the last 3 years. And one reason we've been able to do it is that third column for each one of the 3 years, that's ended in a pretty big positive number. Collected more revenues than we estimated, spent less money than's budgeted. So I think it bodes well for us, as Eric said, looking at next year, if the city finds it, or actually this spring, when the city starts doing its budget for next year, you'll find that we have a surplus balance that can be tapped if necessary. The council has that 12% policy. We're, I think, way above 14% now, if I remember that chart correctly, Eric.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's room to move there. So I think that's good news. And then really, it's the mayor, councilors that have come through, and department heads especially, that have all made a difference on that bottom line.
All right. Anybody else have something? With the screen share, I can't see everyone. Let me see what's going on.
I can stop that screen share here.
Wow, that's very helpful. Thank you. All right, Claude.
You've done a nice job, Eric, but a lot of what you've been discussing here is a audit speak, and could you give us just a general, does it look to me from what you said and what Mike's explaining that we're doing better than we had planned to. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, I think, anytime in a municipal environment, budgets are extremely important. And I think we're all aware of that as council members, citizens, auditors. So I think whenever the city is able to achieve, positive budget results, meaning, adding to the fund balance as opposed to utilizing the fund balance, what that does is it provides you with additional, leverage as you're moving into subsequent budget periods. And really with the uncertainty that we're all facing these days with, whether it's grant funding or any type of external funding, I think that's a good place to be. And so, but as Mike mentioned, what we're doing here is we're presenting the year-end results, but, it's also an indicator of your department heads and the monitoring of budgets, right? And the close eye that your staff and department heads and finance and management really take to look at that information on a regular basis and make sure that they're controlling the spending as much as they can. So yeah, I would agree with Mike's assessment. I mean, overall, I think the city's financial position is positive.
Thank you.
I agree, and I think it'll continue to do so. I think we've made some positive changes. I know that we were flat last year, 0.49 the year before, which has helped us sort of build that little nest egg a little bit, which is nice. I think we'll be able to stay pretty flat this year. If not, figure some other stuff out. It'd be nice to see that rainy day fund essentially get a little bigger.
Yeah.
So that when we do have ebbs and flows, we're not going back to our tax base.
Right. And I know I think it was at the most recent council meeting, where Aaron and Mike and Steve presented some information around the capital projects fund. So I know I'll mention that Aaron and his staff have really taken some steps in some key areas to review. It's a lot of historical information, and especially in that capital projects area. If you look, within your financial statements, there's a separate schedule that lists out all your current projects. And the internal accounting and reporting for that has been reviewed in detail by Aaron and his staff. And I think kind of moving forward, you guys are set up better on that end to track some of those projects, which I think is really important, particularly when you have, 2 consecutive years of bond funding that are going to be used for those types of projects. So I just wanted to highlight that. I think that was good work done by Aaron, and that's something that we spent quite a bit of time during the audit reviewing and discussing as well.
Nice. We looking at other infrastructure things, and I think it'll be nice to see that we're able to invest in ourselves in the city and not have to raise taxes to do it. We are a service center community, so we typically get hit the hardest, and we give out the most resources to the region. We are literally the 5th or 6th largest economy in the state. I think sometimes the state needs to sort of pay attention to that and see that we're doing the things that we need to be doing. They need to be fiscally responsible and start giving us the revenue sharing that we deserve so that we can do more. All right. Anybody else? Eric, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. I'm going to look. Is there any disclosure of conflict of interest? Anybody got conflict? All right. Moving on. Approval of consent agenda.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Can I get a roll call, Patty?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
And I'd like to make a motion to take the entire agenda by title only.
Second.
There, roll call on that, Patty.
Yes. Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right. Moving on to unfinished business, order 286, 2020.
An order providing for amendment to order 65-2019 solar site lease.
My understanding is that this item is moot at this point because they're no longer asking for changes to the lease. So I'd make a motion to table it indefinitely.
Second.
All right. Patty, can I get a roll call on that?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Oliveira,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yes.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to order 275, 2020.
Approving tax increment financing district Colby Main Street properties and related development plan.
I would also make a motion to table this until the next regularly scheduled meeting. Maybe we'll give Steve a chance to give an update on it before we vote to table. But we still got a little bit more work to do, but things are moving in the right direction. And I think we're looking to set up a conversation with somebody from DECD with the state to get some direct answers. And I think we'll be ready soon to come forward with a final version.
I'll second that.
And maybe
Steve, do you want to say something before we vote on this?
Yes.
I don't know.
can you not hear us?
Muted, I don't think.
I don't think he heard you.
Steve,
Yes.
is there something you'd like to say on this matter before we move on?
Oh, thank you. What I'd like to say here is that which one are we on? I'm sorry, I was trying to find my way around the,
It's the approving the tax incremental financing district Colby Main Street properties.
oh, yes, we're working on trying to identify how, well, the limitations on what we can do with the TIF proceeds for that particular TIF. And we have been looking at the inventory of streets that need maintenance and how they connect to the downtown area, how they feed the area around the TIF. And as Eric pointed out, we'll be reaching out, actually we have reached out to the state authorities to have a sit down with them to get a better understanding of what we can include on our spending program and where the boundaries are, the geographic as well as legal boundaries for using this money. We have a lot of ideas, and generally they're going to focus around roads, sidewalks, economic development initiatives, paying down some bond funding, and perhaps some other things. But the revenue stream from this TIF is going to go on for 30 years. And it starts next year probably with about $250,000, grows to a little bit over $800,000, and then remains fairly flat except for any tax adjustments that happen over the next 27 years. So there's a lot of funding potential here for maintaining a lot of the infrastructure that feeds the downtown.
Which is great, because that'll start to benefit. And we've always talked about the downtown revitalization, but this gives us an opportunity to revitalize some of the other parts of the city.
Absolutely.
Hopefully a lot of the south end as it comes through. But that's a lot of further discussion, and I think we've got do we want to table this, Eric? So we've got one. Do I get a second? Foss, okay. Councilor Foss, second. Patty, can I get a roll call on this?
Yes. Councilor Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira,
Yes.
Councilor Klepak,
Yep.
Councilor Green,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Moving on to new business, Resolution 31, 2021.
A resolution providing for a waiver of foreclosure of municipal tax liens.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Steve, did you have a comment? I'm sorry.
Yes, we have two cases this year that we believe are appropriate for you to issue waivers on. The addresses are in your agenda packet. I don't recall exactly what they are right now, and I'm working with too many screens to find it. But I have Linda Cody here with me, our tax collector, and Bill Lee, who's our city solicitor, who can answer any questions that you have about this. The general situation is that these two taxpayers are unable to make the payment on their last year's taxes. In fact, one of them, I think, is 3 years old. Maybe both of them are. But we've made an arrangement with them, subject to your waiving the foreclosure, that they will make payment on those taxes over a short period of time over the next 2 or 3 months. Linda, did I leave anything out?
Nope, that sounded great. And they both are foreclosure of 2019 taxes, but both want to pay the taxes.
Okay, so it's right up to date except for this past year.
No, 2 years.
2 years, okay.
2 years.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from the council? I mean, it's a good thing. Sort of being able to keep people in their houses to try to navigate through. Going. So, Patty, can I get a roll call?
Councilor Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira,
Yes.
Councilor Klepak,
Yep.
Councilor Green,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Moving on to Resolution 32, 2021.
A resolution providing for renewal of a special amusement permit to Eric Willett and Ryan Flaherty doing business as Waterville Brewing Company.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? None, I'll move to a roll call.
Councilor Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira,
Yes.
Councilor Klepak,
Yep.
Councilor Green,
Yes.
Councilor Foss,
Yes.
Councilor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
On to Resolution 33, 2021.
A resolution providing for support of a diversity statement for the city of Waterville.
To adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Eric?
I just didn't know, I know Counselor Green brought this forward, so maybe she wants to take the time to read it.
Oh, sure.
Guess that.
Okay, and I'll just add that this language was adapted from some language that was brought forward by the Central Maine Growth Council, and I believe part of a regional discussion to support diversity in the region. And so Fairfield, Winslow, and Oakland have all adopted similar statements. So I'm eager for Waterville to join with our neighboring towns to show our support for this. Whereas diversity is an important part of the history, culture, and identity of Waterville and essential to its continued growth and vitality, the City of Waterville is committed to welcoming and supporting all its citizens, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, age, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, and abilities. And whereas we are committed to cultivating an environment that values and appreciates all members of our community, with the shared goals to nurture a culture where inclusiveness is a societal norm, not just an initiative, and foster a deep sense of pride, passion, and belonging, regardless of our individual differences, and unify our shared commitment to prosperity, ingenuity, and civic responsibility. And whereas we will routinely examine our beliefs and biases to ensure that we are upholding our values around diversity and inclusiveness, now therefore be it resolved by the Waterville City Council, acting as the municipal officers as follows: that the City Council hereby supports this diversity statement and encourages all citizens of Waterville to prevent discrimination and foster diversity and inclusiveness.
Thank you, Councilor Green. We've had some discussions over this. Talked to some of the other councilors, and I feel like you're going. The one thing I will say is I always hear a lot about Winslow, Oakland, Fairfield, and all these other towns doing things before we do. And I'll be honest, I'm sort of tired of getting our rear ends handed to us by other communities. I think that we are the leader in this region and that we should be doing these sorts of things and bringing this stuff up before all the other smaller municipalities in our area. We should be leading in all things in this region. And I hope that coming forward that everyone else is sort of on board with that. We are Waterville. We should act like it. Thank you, Rebecca.
Sure, and I just want to add that, I think part of the of bringing this forward is exactly to be a leader in this area. So not just adopt the resolution, but adopt policies and practices that support it. And some of our neighboring towns have done, diversity training with staff. I'm hoping this is just the beginning of a larger conversation that we have in the community.
I agree. Anybody else? All right, let's move to a roll call.
Councilor Morris,
Yes.
Councilor Oliveira, Counselor Oliveira,
I think she fell off.
Yeah, we don't see it.
Counselor Klepak,
2 thumbs up from me.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas,
Yes.
and is Counselor Oliveira back or no?
I don't see her.
Okay, the vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Great.
Oh, I was trying to see if she's online. I can't find her. All right.
Huh.
Finally, we'll move on to Resolution 34, 2021.
A resolution providing for establishing a city manager evaluation committee.
Move to adopt.
Second.
This is part of Steve's contract, I believe. Am I correct? I'm hopeful that that as this committee, it's going to have 1 or 2 counselors on it. 2 counselors.
There were 2 blanks to be filled in by the council.
One's not really a committee, Jay.
Oh, nice. Better. I'm hopeful it's pretty diverse. That there's some different opinions on that. You guys pick it out, so it is what it is. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, I wanted to speak to that because, and I have a question for Bill. I mean, because inherently we'll be, if we're doing an evaluation of personnel, this is a personnel matter. So I wonder if the committee falls under the normal limitations of our other committees. Any discussions we would have around Steve's performance, I assume, would be able to be done in an executive session. We could possibly have more than just 2 counselors.
That is correct, Counselor. You could make this, for example, a 3-member committee. If you did, and you have actually created a public body, we have to give notice of your meetings, but all the business of that committee would be the type of business that would be conducted in executive session so that the public would not be allowed to be present. If it's just a 2-member committee, you don't have to give public notice of the meetings. If it's a 3-member committee, you do. The practical effect, however, is this committee's business is not the public's business because it is strictly a personnel matter.
Well, and so to piggyback on that, I want as many counselors as possible to be involved. So I'm wondering if perhaps there should be one member who's there for all of the evaluations. But it's, for example, if we're going to do it quarterly, we could have different counselors quarterly, or some way to include more people, but also have some consistency with somebody being a member who's there for all of the evaluations.
If I may, Counselor Thomas, just it can be done in a number of different ways. I think what was being considered was to have a relatively small subcommittee, but then to be able to meet without having the complications of the schedules of a number of people, but then to meet periodically with the council to give them updates. But it doesn't have to be done that way. But that is what I think the general thinking was going into this. Again, that's the council's choice as to how it is constituted, how often it would meet, how often it would report back to the full council. But the basic idea is and this is a matter that our city manager felt very strongly about, the process of evaluation, and did not want to wait for a year-end evaluation to the end of the year. Want to be able to meet frequently. This is a new position for him. If the council wanted to see different direction or different emphasis, and Mr. Daly will speak to this, I'm sure, if he wasn't to add to anything I'm saying, want to hear about it early. You can't make a change unless you know a change is needed, or you can't make emphasize something differently unless you know that that is what is being requested. But that's the idea behind this.
Claude?
So that was my question. Would be when it comes to the end of the evaluation period, the whole council would be involved, would be my understanding. So the question then is this subcommittee just something that would be a kind of continuous thing that to keep the council updated from time to time over the course of the year?
Go ahead, Eric.
Well, I'm just thinking about Steve's time here. And Jay and Steve and I already have plans to meet basically every week that we don't have a council meeting. Jay and I will be meeting with Steve to help develop the agenda, to sort of make sure we're all on task and on the same page. I mean, I don't know if maybe that could be the committee, rather than making Steve go to another meeting. I don't know how, a lot, Mike will tell you this, like you can find yourself, just all your time sucked up into meetings where you're not actually able to do anything productive. So I guess I would just want to be careful. I don't know if there's something that's already in place that could morph into this, or if we need another committee.
Rebecca.
Do we have set
my understanding of the committee is
Rebecca,
that, sorry?
Councilor Green and then Councilor Morris.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my understanding of the committee was, of the work of the committee was to establish what the goals are for the city manager with, the input, of course, of the council, and to sort of kind of guide the process, not necessarily add a lot of meetings for Steve, but to gather information from, say, department heads or other entities that might be working with him. And so, that's different from the work of just meeting with the city manager on a regular basis. I think that having more people on the subcommittee, say 3, would be fine. But if I understand correctly, that would mean those discussions could only happen with public notice and then presumably before a city council meeting every 2 weeks. Is that correct?
Early before a council meeting.
No, as long as there's public notice given.
Right. And we'd be giving them public notice of a meeting that they're not going to be allowed to participate in.
Well, I get that. Yeah. But that is an extra step. So.
What were you going to say, Bill?
Oh, I was agreeing with Councilor Thomas's characterization of how the meeting would take place if it's a committee of 3 or more. You give public notice, but then the public would not be allowed to attend because the entire meeting would be the subject of personnel matters, which are conducted only in executive session.
Councilor Morris?
Now, as I understand, do we have I think I spoke with Councilor Green yesterday, I believe. Yeah, yesterday, about this topic. And, do we have a template in which we are evaluating him? Like at the end of the year or the 6 months, if we do a mid-year and then a year-end, review, so to speak, are there certain metrics or goals that, we want him to achieve? And how is he, progressing towards those goals? I think, is that what we're trying to accomplish here?
Yeah, yes. If I may?
You may.
Yes. Steve's contract specifies that the year-end evaluation will be according to criteria established either by Maine Municipal Association or the International Association of City Managers. I may have mangled that a little bit, but there's a very large organization, or we could use the state version, and they have established criteria for the evaluation of managers. So
Okay.
it'd be expected to be following one of the two, and the contract says that the city decides which one. So you could choose a state model, or you could choose what's really a national model.
Sure.
Well, this makes me a little concerned that perhaps we're putting the cart before the horse here a little bit, because we have a group of very new counselors, and we haven't come together as a group to decide what are our goals as a group. You know, what is it that we want Steve to focus on? I'm sure we all have individual ideas, but you know, I spoke to Steve and Mike and the mayor about the idea of doing some sort of a retreat, like we did 2 years ago. I think that's something that we probably need to schedule sooner than later, so that we can all, that'll sort of be the initial meeting where we set the goals for Steve. You know, the things that he'll be working on, which would then be evaluated by this committee. And my suggestion for the committee would perhaps be, maybe it should be myself, the mayor, and then the third person could be a rotating other member of the council, however we want to do that. And I would suggest that because Jay and I will be having regular meetings with him anyway.
Steve.
Yeah, I like the idea of the 2 or 3 person committee meeting periodically, perhaps quarterly. I agree with what the chair just said, that the cart is before the horse at this point, and the basis for an evaluation not only needs to be set through a gathering, a retreat of some sort, a goal setting session, if you will, but the instrument for measuring evaluation should also be determined before we get into this process. Otherwise, it's going to be free form and people will be making it up. And it's going to be important to establish a roadmap and a course. That's what I'm looking for, so that if we have one that's a consolidated view of the council, then it's not likely to be a spider web where individual councilors have me pointed in different directions that aren't necessarily compatible with the main objective. I also like the idea of rotating councilors through, because in my opinion, it gives everybody some skin in the game, if you will. And at the same time, it gives me an opportunity to hear what the individual opinions are of different councilors, not just the same 2 or 3 all the time. So I'm looking forward to this, but I think it does have to be organized and systematic.
Claude.
Oh, in that regard, can I offer an amendment to your proposal, Rebecca, that it be a 3-member committee to meet initially to set the parameters, expecting that there will be input from the other councilors that would then prepare a report to be presented to the council to establish the parameters for the evaluation.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, that was a motion to amend.
I'll second.
Right, can I get a roll call on that?
Can I just clarify the amendment?
Yep.
That you want to amend to make it a 3-member committee to set the parameters and bring it back to the city council?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Is everyone ready for the roll call? Council Morris?
Yes.
Council Oliveira?
Yes.
Council Klepak?
Yeah, sure.
Counselor Green,
Yep.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Can we move it as amended now?
I'll move the resolution as amended.
But on Bill Lee has something to say.
At some point here, you have to decide who's on the committee.
Yeah, that's my next order of business, Bill. So I'm going to move
Okay.
it as amended first.
Is there a second to Eric's motion to move as amended?
Second.
And then I would like to offer an amendment to have the committee be made up of myself and Jay as permanent members, and then a rotating counselor depending on availability. Now, that would need a second if anyone thinks it's a good idea.
Second.
A second.
All right. How are they going to get a roll call on that amendment?
Oh, did Rebecca have something to say?
Oh, sorry, Rebecca. I didn't see her yet.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, how will the rotating counselor be introduced into the mix? And if we're starting with the objective of coming up with a rubric, then we should pick somebody to start that.
I honestly think the goal setting portion of this is going to be done honestly by the entire council. Or at least we're probably going to have a session where we'll all get to have our input, the retreat that I'm talking about. And then perhaps
Okay.
the committee will focus that to the most important things, I would say. But in terms of who the first person is, I mean, if somebody wants to volunteer now, or we can figure it out when we get there, and then we just won't have the same person in consecutive reviews.
Well, if we're going to have,
Go ahead.
Counselor
Go ahead,
Ward.
go ahead, Greg. No, go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
if we're going to have a meeting of the whole council to decide, then, I mean, the next person who's it can be nominated at that point. That's fine. I just want to make sure that, the process is clear as we move forward and we have the next step.
Well, I think we're conflating two different things here, Eric. One is the evaluation process itself, but that's being confused with the establishment of the parameters for the. I quite frankly think that we shouldn't put the cart before the horse. We should get our parameters established. Indeed, it might be possible, maybe it's possible to meet next Tuesday, the whole council in executive session to do just that. And get this done right off the bat, then Steve knows exactly where he stands.
I think Bill would have to weigh in on what exactly qualifies as a personnel matter. Like, does us discussing goals, like that sounds to me like something that needs to be public. The actual evaluation of the city manager, where we, that is something that I think would be executive session, but like a goal setting session for the entire council of coming up with what it is that we want Steve to be working on, I think would have to be a public meeting.
That is correct.
Yeah, I don't think it can be something that's going to be done on a Tuesday night. I think we need to do this. We need to block off a period of time and put together an agenda, and that's not going to happen between now and next Tuesday. For this, the one thing that I would like to see, though, like as we go as we figure out which of these two things that we want to use, can we get copies of what the Maine Municipal and the International City County Managers Association performance tools are? Like, there are two different things. Can we get copies of what those are, what those entail, so that we can determine which might be the best fit for our situation?
I'll take care of that.
Thank you, Steve.
He's already doing it. Counselor Foss.
I agree with, though I voted yes for the amendment. I agree with Council Frankie's amendment to this whole situation. I think we've totally got the cart before the horse on this. I don't want us to rush into this and do things wrong. we should get the information in front of us, table this for at least next meeting. That's not an offer to table yet. Get some more information in front of us, make sure we're doing this in the right steps. That way we don't, again, get that cart before the horse. That's my opinion on this. Seems like we've gotten way off into the weeds in about 4 different directions. That's all I got.
Councilor Frankie.
And I want to agree with Councilor Foss and point out that we should not be afraid to have a public meeting about this. This is something that the entire city affects the entire city. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't have public input.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm not saying we shouldn't have public input.
I just wanted to be clear that it had to be a public meeting. That part has
right. Yeah, absolutely. That have to be a public meeting, but I'm just saying I don't think that we're in a position where we can create these goals, not having, either of these, rubrics, so to speak, in front of us next Tuesday. You know what I mean? I don't think it's a 1 hour, 2 hour conversation. I think there's a lot of things to kind of go through as a council, as a bunch of new counselors. I remember the last time that we did this, we were there for almost 5 hours, at this, professionally, run, seminar, and, we accomplished a lot. And it was very well run, and it was very well planned. And, that's the only thing that, that I'd have to say about that is that, yeah, we should absolutely do this, and pick together a time where we can block off that amount of time. And I apologize, but that's not on a Tuesday night.
Councilor Foss?
Given that myself and Councilor Frankie agree on something, I'm going to move to table this until the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
Sorry.
I second that.
Vote on the amendment first, Bill. There was an amendment on the floor that I don't think.
My apologies. I'll retract.
So we want to move on the amendment to appoint Eric Thomas, Jay Coelho, and a rotating third counselor.
If we're going to table it, I'll just withdraw my motion and we can table it. We can figure that out at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Billy.
You're withdrawing your motion. And the person who seconded is okay with that. So now there's a motion to table.
Motion to table.
Bill.
Just to make comment, I think we're looking at a 2-part process here. One is the council setting the goals for the city manager. And then once those goals have been established, to establish an evaluation process in achieving those goals. So as you're working this out, it seems like we do have 2 distinct parts to what I'm hearing people express.
I agree. They're not the same, but this tabling it will give us an opportunity to sort of work that out. Councilor Green?
Was there a second to Rick's motion?
Yes.
Yes, Councilor Green?
Can I ask so it seems to me that some preparation has to be done in order to even bring forward what the goals might be based on these 2 different tools that we have at our disposal. So I'm just wondering how that's going to happen.
That would happen at the goal setting thing, the meeting that we take.
So we just all have copies of both tools, and then we decide which one, and then we narrow down the goals.
Well, I think, Rebecca, what it looks to me like is going to happen is that we'll get information about these different groups that have standards already prepared. And at the next council meeting, then we'll decide how to go about setting up a committee to establish the goals. Once that's established, then we can go on to setting up how the process will happen to implement the evaluation.
Okay.
2 steps.
Sounds good.
Sooner rather than later, we need to schedule a retreat with the entire council like what we did 2 years ago, so that we can
Right.
all get together on what we want those goals to be.
Steve?
Oh, I was going to offer to put a construct together on where the horse goes, where the cart goes, and what goes in between.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, offer it as a proposal on as far as the order of things to happen and where the resources are going to come from. And Eric and you, Mr. Mayor, and I have talked about the retreat concept. I've talked with Mike about it, and he had a glowing review, as does Mike Morris, on the last event that took place. And that I've been through that kind of a goal setting and a strategic planning retreat before, and they're enormously helpful, especially for the manager, but also for the council. And where you have several members and you have freshman and sophomore members on the council, that I think it's important to do that. And then everybody's at least looking in the same direction when you come out of that, and the other pieces will fall into place. There's no, the provision in my contract talks about 2 council members meeting with me more often than annually to go over progress and alterations that might be needed. It doesn't say it has to be quarterly. It doesn't say when it has to start. And I think getting this process accomplished in the beginning will make all the difference.
I know we have we have a motion on the table currently.
A motion to table with a second, yes.
Can I get a roll call, Patty?
Yes. Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yep.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right. Moving on to council updates.
Mayor, I believe there's a motion by Council Thomas.
I'd like to make a motion to waive cloture to add resolution 35-2021.
Oh, yes, sorry. Is there a second?
Second.
Shall I take a roll call?
Yes, please.
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Yeah.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Unequivocally, yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Shall I read Resolution 35, Mayor?
Yes, it's
One
here.
question, point of order here. Is he even here?
No.
Mike's gone.
We'll find out in the morning.
They'll be surprised tomorrow.
He made
Go
it
ahead, Patty.
the first day of the year, Mike Roy Day, too.
That's
I'll get it.
Resolution 35, 2021, a resolution providing for renaming the IT training room to the Michael J. Roy Conference Room. Be it resolved by the Waterville City Council acting as municipal officers as follows, that the City Council hereby renames the IT training room to the Michael J. Roy Conference Room in recognition of his 16 years of loyal service to the citizens of Waterville.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Go ahead,
I
Eric.
think it's great.
I thought it was fitting. Mike should have his name on something in that building. It seemed like a great opportunity, and I'm sure he'll be excited to be walking in there for the next year and seeing his name on the wall.
Sorry, Mike, we're selling the building tomorrow. No, just kidding.
Condo out that room.
Anyone else? All right, Patty, I'll move to a roll call.
Council Morris,
Absolutely, yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Definitely.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Thank you, Mike. Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes, indeed.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
And then Jay, I actually had received a text from Mike that he got a text from our accountant who said normally the council votes to accept the draft of the financial report so that he can move on to the next step. So I don't know, maybe Steve can weigh in. Do we want to do that tonight, or do you want to wait till the next meeting?
He didn't seem to show a need for that when he was presenting it to you.
Yeah, it wasn't part of my agenda, so I wasn't really sure.
Okay, why don't we just wait and figure out if we need to take some sort of official action at the next meeting we can. I'm sure it's not going to stop him from.
Yeah, it seems a little bit contrary that you would accept a report of an auditor.
Right, we don't have a choice. Go back and make it look better.
Oh, yeah, fix it. You did it wrong. We don't want those red numbers. All right, so with that established, now can we move to counselor updates? Are there any? Well, I know I'm not a counselor, but I will put one out there, and I've sent this out to some of you. Infrastructure's been big from us. I think that investing in ourselves is important. We have the opportunity to join some other communities. There is something currently in the state legislature, LD 277, which is to establish a committee to look at rail service, passenger rail service for our city. It would go from Portland to Brunswick to Augusta to here to Bangor. It would be years out, but I think that next council meeting, it'd be nice to have that on the agenda, and as a city to be behind a project like that would open us up to all sorts of economic development, people being able to move freely back and forth through our city. Want to go to Portland? Jump on a train, hour later, you're there. Come back home and move on. I think that will do great things for our city. I know it's a long time out, but I'm hopeful that you guys will be there to support that next council meeting. And that's all I got. Garrett.
So Mike says that the accountant does want us to do that tonight. So
Mike needs to get back on.
I don't know if he's still in the bill. Was he at City Hall? I don't know.
He was, but he may not be now, so he's out of touch.
So you just need a vote?
Yeah, I would just make a motion to accept the auditor's report.
I'll second that.
Can I get a roll call on that?
Council Morris,
Yes.
Council Olivera,
Yes.
Council Klepak,
Oh, yeah.
Council Green,
Yes.
Council Foss,
Yes.
Council Frankie,
Yes.
Council Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 7 in favor and 0 opposed.
All right. Councilor Foss.
Mayor, I want to make you aware of Tanya Laurie is here for community notes, just so you know she's there and what.
Yep.
what
We won't go, we'll wait for her. Any other councilor updates? Councilor Frankie?
Just to note that February is Black History Month, and I'm assuming that we'll maybe be able at the next meeting to pass a resolution recognizing that.
I believe we are. I think we're working on that with Councilor Flavia Oliveira. We got some of the language a little late, not in time for this meeting, but something should be on the agenda for the following meeting.
Good.
Seeing no other councilor updates, I will move to community notes. Tanya, that's your turn. She's still here.
She is.
Muted.
Hi, yes. How are you?
Pretty good.
Me and a few other people have been talking online. They have a fridge in Skowhegan community where people donate to it, thinking that Waterville could benefit from it. I'm thinking it would be mostly donations. We would just need like an area for power and the ability to like have an enclosure, which I'm sure I could get somebody to donate materials and have it enclosed depending on where a power source would be.
So, Tanya, I would ask you, do you know who Linda Woods is?
No.
So Linda Woods runs a gleaning group here in Waterville. And she actually reached out to us. I've been talking to her over the last week, and she's got a refrigerator and some other stuff and has some also similar ideas. She runs a lot of groups in town, and she may be a really good resource for you.
Okay.
You and I should get together tomorrow, even by phone, and I can get you some of her information. She's already reached out to the council also.
Definitely.
So that I'll try to connect you two together. Awesome. So that you can make something happen.
That sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
You too.
Any other community notes? All right, manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to let you know that we're continuing to work on filling the executive assistant position vacated in January. The candidate pool is kind of slim at this point, and we may find that it'll be necessary to re-advertise, but we're continuing to work on it. Secondly, all introductory meetings with department heads that I've had and with counselors will be completed this week. I think I have 2 or 3 left. At that point, I'll be turning outward to the community and getting to me and starting to meet key players in the community. I think that's going to take a little bit longer, but I want to meet as many people as possible. Third on my list is to report to you that Mike Roy is going to continue on staff on a part-time temporary basis for the foreseeable future. He'll be helping with a variety of projects, including the downtown revitalization, TIF-funded projects, and more immediately to provide support for the city manager office while it's shorthanded. He's proven to possess a wealth of historical knowledge that I find important, necessary, and extremely advantageous, and I don't want to squander that opportunity with him. Fourth on my list has to do with COVID-19. It's impacted the city's police, fire, city hall, and now the public works departments as a result of contacts with people outside the organization who have tested positive. We have 1 case of an employee ill with COVID-19, and that person has been quite ill with it, has been out of work for almost 2 weeks now. They'll remain at home until they test negative for whatever the required protocol is before they return to work. Chief Essler and our HR director have been monitoring all of these situations and applying the policy protocols that were previously decided on. In all cases, we are following those protocols. In addition to that, Chief Essler is working with the local medical care providers to get all public safety staff vaccinated. That's underway and progressing. Finally on my list, I've been contacted by parties on both sides of a state plan to remove the Lockwood Dam adjacent to the Hathaway Center and the dam next upstream in Fairfield. My preliminary understanding is that it has to do with fish migration versus hydroelectric power generation. My sense is that removing the Lockwood Dam could have a profound implication on Waterville. I don't know anything more than what I've just reported, but as I learn more, I'll keep you all informed. And finally, the Public Works Department has done an outstanding job with this snowstorm. There have been no incidents, no issues, and the crews have gotten adequate rest. They were out at 3 a.m. this morning and went home, I believe, at 5 o'clock. They'll be out at 2 a.m. tomorrow morning to do the rest of the plowing and begin the cleanup. That's the end of my report.
All right. Thank you, Steve, for that. Nothing else? All right.
To adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call back. Tell them. Count them out. We're leaving.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good night, everybody.